light going on over here. Does this thing even still, hello? There we go. Whoa, that's weird looking when I do that. Hey, what's happening, everybody? So I am, if you can see this, kind of wrapping stuff up on this Z900Rs. So stuff that I am doing, get you guys kind of in the mix over here. God, this is pretty clumsy, but we're just going to keep rocking it anyway. So anyway, if y'all see me, have y'all seen me work on stuff? I don't know. I think y'all see me work on some stuff, but not on everything. Skids, what's up, bro? So working on this thing. So what am I up to? Well, let me grab what I'm working on over here. And again, if you guys have never, if you've never been around motorcycles are kind of funny because they're like cars, but they're not, because they rev significantly higher. There's a lot of things that start to mean more. Like they don't mean less in a car, or let me rephrase that. They mean less in a car mainly because there's not as much RPM, there's not enough, or not as much resonance. So anyway, yes, breaking out my intake manifold porting skills, what we've done is we've removed a center divider on this intake, or rather on this airbox lid, allowing all of these, there we go, allowing the intake runners, these guys here, to all be able to breathe, in essence, through the same plenum. This had a big divider going right down the middle of it. And what that did is it was making it to where you only had two intake runners breathing off the same side. It's really not a good idea, especially when you're turning something 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 RPM. But one thing I wanted to show you guys is kind of what, a lot of folks will say, well, a dual plane intake manifold or a long runner intake manifold, what does all that mean? Why is it that you would, have those types of runner length type setups? So anyway, this bike, it's a Z900Rs. It's really made more for street use. And it's interesting that there's some car stuff that's going on with this bike that it's kind of the same thing as working with a car. So what this bike basically would have, if you want to think of it like this, is kind of like having a single plane intake manifold in terms of how the runners are shaped, but the way that it acts is more like a dual plane. And again, let me show you guys, probably a little bit easier if I just did this. There we go. So if you notice, the intake runners are two different lengths. Outsides are short, middles are long. Now on a car, typically it's the other way around. The outsides would be long and you'd have a carburetor sitting right up here like that. It doesn't really matter how you do it. This is more because of how it's packaged. But the same idea applies. You're combining the benefits of having a short runner and long runner, just like you would in an intake manifold in a car. So that's a little bit more familiar for you, perhaps. And for this, it kind of makes sense, again, because the bike really is more a, get this thing scooted over here. Golly, this is really going ugly. I made it worse. Hang on. So anyway, bringing some of that to you guys, wanted to show you what I'm up to. ECU is going to be reflashed, and we've got a full exhaust on the way for this thing. So, lots involved, a whole lot to jump in the middle of. But anyway, bringing you guys along, just so you guys can see what I'm up to, working on something different. It's not necessarily car stuff this go around. I will say though, as far as, stuff that I've been up to, so little Bonnie over here gave me the red ass in the middle of the oil change. So the bike had been previously serviced. That's good. Used a K&N filter. That's good. Anyway, long story short, it's kind of hard to do an oil change on a Bonneville on the center stand if you're using one of the older style or really any style of like auto parts store type catch can for the oils. So anyway, had a little bit of a situation. Anyway, got it all buttoned up. It's kind of funny though, just the fact that it had it had already been serviced, which was really cool. And so the bike only has about 850 miles on it, and really getting to like that bike a lot. So I know that there's a lot of folks that have, I can't believe you got a Bonneville, and why would you get a Bonneville? Well, really, it's more of a bike for my wife to graduate up into once I teach her how to ride on the Rebel. But the thing is that these Bonneville platform bikes, nothing does old school retro as good as that. Although this girl's got a little bit of an argument for that. I gotta say though, the more I ride it, the more I like it. I can see though why the bike does get a little bit of criticism, not necessarily because of performance per se, but I will say that I have had to play around more with suspension than I thought I would on this bike in terms of setting up preload, talking about the Bonneville here. But the other thing is just how squirrely that bike gets when tire pressure isn't just so. So anyway, it's just kind of the way that it is. But I will say this: I will look for excuses to ride the Bonneville. I'm not kidding, guys. Like, listen, love my Cowie. Okay, this is my girl right here. And I'm going to be doing kind of a standalone video with the T-Bird. The T-Bird's back, the Triumph Thunderbird. Took it out and was playing around with it the other day. Actually, it was yesterday. The Bonneville, it's really growing on me, and it's growing on me for just every weird reason. It's because of its motorcycle. And that's why it just does being a motorcycle so well. Like, it doesn't have to be sport bike. It doesn't have to be cruiser. The thing is hysterical with its torque delivery. It's just, it's just funny. It's really neat. So, anyway, plus it's a heritage bike. It really is sweet. But anyway, let me check in with you guys. Again, Skids' first in. Chase. Old Red is no longer with us. Went down in a blaze of glory. That sucks. Sovereign is in. Oh. Skids, why wouldn't you want a Bonnie? People have never ridden one. Yeah. So let me tell you something about the Bonneville. The Bonneville actually has a unique history. The Bonneville and the Harley Sportster kind of walk in lockstep. Basically, the Sportster was put together by Harley Davidson to try to dethrone some of what the Bonneville, some of the glory, some of the, whatever you want to call it, some of the, Bonneville was throwing shade all over the place, and Sportster came out to be a sportier version of the V-twins that was coming out of Milwaukee. So anyway, I don't know who wouldn't want a Bonneville. The guys that don't want Bonnevilles are, there's a lot of, I don't know. It's just people that haven't ridden them. In my opinion, there's folks that have ridden them and folks that haven't. But I will say that it is a little bit on the squirrely side, which makes it a little bit on the fun side. And I will say this: you can get down on a Bonneville. So let me just show you the bike while I'm talking about it. So this thing, I had taken the bike out. There's an exit off of one of the highways over here, and there's a lot of real long sweeping right-handers that come off of this exit. It's just nothing but, hammering on it was dark and there are no lights out there. And so I'm buzzing along, and eerie thing about this Bonneville, you will end up going faster on this thing than you really expected. It's a T120, so 1200 cc's, making about 80 horsepower and 80 pound-feet of torque, thereabouts, right? But it's all right now. Like you twist the throttle and you're going fast, right? So I'm coming up on one of these right-handers, and I just go to drop into it, and I wasn't thinking about the one that I was on. I'm just out, being a dumb kid on a motorcycle. And I go to just kind of lean the thing in, and it's decreasing radius, and I'm going, oh, it's that one. And I immediately snap. One of the things you'll learn if you're into bikes and things that you pick up on is if you're just kind of riding a bike, you're just kind of riding it. They always say, look as far ahead as you can and all this other stuff. Yeah, you're doing that, but when you're riding bikes, you're just enjoying the ride, right? You're not, vigilant, all, like that. So I'm dropping this thing to the corner, and I'm going in a decreasing radius. So it's a right-hander, so I immediately kind of kick off the bike a little bit, snap my neck over to the right, and just kind of start dropping this thing into the corner and just rolling into the throttle a little bit. And it just set up and dropped right in. So it was kind of funny, but it's going to be really funny. I haven't really taken a look on the tires that are on it reducing chicken strips on a Bonneville. This is pretty funny stuff. But anyway, really fun bike, but I'm having a lot of fun getting to know that thing. And it is a lot of fun. No Junk's asking, do you miss your Hellcat or not really? Not in the least. I don't miss that car, and it's a sad thing to admit. And the thing is that it's not so much that I don't miss it. It's that I don't even think about it. In fact, not only do I not think about it, if the car is mentioned and the thought, gets into my head about that car, I'm actually stoked that somebody else is going to get a chance to enjoy it. And I'm really stoked that I don't have to worry about it anymore. So there's a lot that comes with having a car like that, obviously, right? I mean, they're expensive though. They tie up a lot of money. And if you're not having fun with something, this is the main thing. If you're not enjoying what you've got, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be, I don't like the fact that my money's tied up. I don't like the fact that it's really too fast and I can't drive it on the street the way I want to be able to drive it. Because let's be real. I mean, just like you guys, if I'm going to go 150, if the thing will go 150, right? You can't do that on public roads in a fun way. It's always in a half panic. With motorcycles, I'll put it to you like this. Bonneville will absolutely go 100 miles an hour. Thunderbird, believe it or not, will absolutely go 100 miles per hour. In fact, it'll cover 100 miles an hour relatively quickly, considering that with me on that bike, it's about 800 pounds worth of, British iron. The Kawasaki, obviously it's faster than both of them, but it's a different riding experience. You don't pick one or the other because each one is so very different. But the feeling of acceleration, I mean, motorcycles will accelerate like a banshee right up until the point where aerodynamics, which motorcycles just typically don't have very goods of, they accelerate like mad up to 100, 120 miles an hour, give or take. So, depending on the bike, faster, but you get the idea. The thing is that I can have a whole lot of fun, and it's more of a dynamic experience than sitting in a car, a large car at that. Let's not forget how big the Challenger is. But I can have a lot more fun on this little bitty Bonneville that reminds you that it's a motorcycle just with its a little bit twitchiness, although I think I've tuned some of that out with adding some preload to the rear of that bike. But just know, to answer your question, I know I'm kind of really stretching this answer out a little bit, but no, I don't miss the Hellcat. I'm glad that it's gone. I am looking forward to something hurricane powered. I am going to put a video out that's talking a little bit more about just how powerful that engine is and what it means, like in the whole grand scheme of things, and maybe a different way or another way to look at that engine that's going to kind of surprise you a little bit about what you're getting out of that engine. So anyway, Skids, they compete with the Harley Davidson Sportsters. Talking about the Bonneville, yes. Give me a Bonnie over a Sporty any day, and yes, I think Sporties are cool too. Listen. So you had asked me a question about, who pissed you off with Harley Davidson. Believe it or not, okay, so my background with motorcycles is pretty varied, but the very first real street motorcycle that I ever spent a significant amount of time with, not ones that I had just ridden or had to transport for people, but motorcycle that I spent like a significant amount of time riding on the street, Harley Davidson Sportster. It was an Evo Sportster. It was my stepdad's. And he had actually gotten it as a bonus. His job had given it to him. And so he had done a couple of things to it, some Screaming Eagle parts, stuff like that. He wasn't really a motorcycle guy, though, although he did like to ride it. But, I mean, at any given time, he'd just be like, hey, mothballing the bike, you want to ride it, you can ride it. I'm just, anyway, we had talked about it. He's like, yeah, I'm just not interested in it. So I had a lot of experience with that bike, and it was interesting. I had a Harley, this dude on one of the Alphabet Harleys, and I was at a gas station. The guy goes, when are you going to get a real Harley? And like, he walks up, says, nice bike. I said, thanks, man. It's my stepdad's. Yeah, when's he going to get a real Harley? I'm like, it is a real Harley. It says it on the gas tank. And I thought that was such a shitty thing. Like, Harley on Harley shade. Anyway, not long after that, got more into sport bikes and kind of forgot all about it. My stepdad ended up selling that Harley. And I kind of hated that because I wanted that Sportster, but what I would have probably done with that bike is I would have cafe converted it. One of my favorite bikes to see on the road are Sportsters that have a cafe kit. Those are really cool bikes. Rice, thank you very much. Saying, hey man, quick question. Have to do a cam and lifters on my full bolt-on scat. Thinking of doing 454 stroker kit by MMX, but can't find much online. Do you have any experience or heard anything about it? Well, Raj, thank you for the contribution. Man, I'll put it to you like this. I know a lot of the guys that are more into competition are running the 454 and the 440 strokers. It all depends on what you want to do with the car. And although the cylinder heads will flow, what a 454 will flow, it will absolutely tax the hell out of the intake manifold. So I need you to know that if you're planning on running the stock intake manifold, probably not the right place for you to be. If you're looking to make just an amazing amount of power with the Holley intake manifold, the Sniper, short ram intake manifold with all the fixins, or if you wanted to go with the Edelbrock and just have it extrude honed. The problem with the 454 for me is that it kind of bumps up on really the limit of what you can have that's streetable based on, like, would you want to just throw the kitchen sink at this thing with a different torque converter? Or are you looking to just have something that's fun for the street? We used to put together at Pikes, we put together a lot of 426s, 434s, stuff like that. Never had any direct experience with anything bigger than, honestly, than 440 cubic inches. All of them got a cam that was about a 238, 242 cam. 238, 246. Yeah, I think they were 238, 246, 238, 244, somewhere in that range. They run good. What I like about the big cubic inch, it's like a 426 with a stock 6.4 intake manifold is actually a lot of fun to drive with a cam that's around a say like a 230, 236, 230, 238 cam. That's actually a really fun car to drive. It's just really torquey, really punchy all the time. And as long as you keep the lobe separation angle around 114, 115, it'll be a good street car in general. But I don't want to tell you that it's going to be, it's going to be hard once you start digging into that engine to, not go deeper and deeper and deeper. So if it were me and you're going to be pulling the engine anyway, really any of the strokers will basically get you where you want to be. I would probably err on the side of like a 426. Go with a little bit more of an aggressive cam to take advantage of the extra cubes that you've got, and stick with the stock intake manifold, and it'll be a great street car overall. If you really want to make power though, you've got to commit to it. 454, 440s, they're really no different than a 426 or a 392. The good thing about a 454 though is that it will tax the heads and whatever intake you put on it more, so it'll make power lower with a comparable camshaft. So again, 238, 242, 238, 244, with a Holley intake, that thing's going to want to make a lot of power, well, everywhere, but it's going to want to make a lot of power on the backside of the power band. So just know that coming into it. But again, it really just depends on what you want to do with the car. So I know that's a lot of information, but it's really all the benefit you get is going to hinge on what you want to do with that car, man. And thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate the contribution. Let me catch back in with you guys. Summer said, I'm really worried my car is making a really bad rotten egg smell again on hard acceleration. We have got a catalytic converter potentially sketching out. It's weird too because it only happens when I'm in gear on the road when the engine is loaded. Yep, that's because you've got more fuel being burned and you're under a higher load, higher exhaust temperatures. It's a catalytic converter thing, and I probably wouldn't worry too much about it until you get a check engine. Excuse me, I guess either ADV dads or sport bike squids don't want a Bonnie, I guess. The skid's already in there. Yeah, it sounds like catalytic converter. Yep. Yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of gas you're using. A lot of that stuff is just, that's sulfur that you're smelling. No, it won't happen no matter what. It's only under heavy load. A lot of times that is what the issue is. Marco's saying, hey, me, what's up, Marco? Yeah, skids, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's just you could be running extra rich at wide open throttle. Those cars, I would imagine, are probably about 10.5 to 1 at wide open throttle, which is pretty rich. Oh, Marco got his 392 regular cab back with small cam and long tubes. Very cool. That'll be a fun truck. Oh no, Sovereign, it won't be the injectors because you would if it was running rich all the time, you would have a check engine light. PO128, I think is what it is. Marco's saying, that's why I sold the red eye and built C7. Yep. One of my favorite cars to drive is the C7 Z06. So I'm saying it's only present on hard acceleration with engines. Oh, engines under load. Yep. Yeah, skids. Yeah, a lot of cars back in the day had that issue. Skid said the Evo Sporty sounds so good. Yeah, it does. It sounded really good. Man, I really like that bike. And again, man, I should have bought that bike from my stepdad. I really should have, because I mean, it would have gotten flat bars, you know, the little fly screen, cafe style fly screen, cowl, flat seat. I mean, that bike would have been really cool once I got done with it. Oh, Marco, yep, about 500, 530 on that. Yep, that'll be a fun truck. Oh, Reich saying it would have a MMX custom grind cam and plan on doing a Holley intake down the road. So there is going to be a difference, Reich, with the way that car runs with the Holley and with the stock intake manifold. One of the things I used to tell customers a lot is once you start playing with short runner intakes, it really does take a lot of the character away from the car down low. So just something to consider, you know, the street manners get a lot worse in some cases, although big cubic inches will eat a lot of those short runner problems up. There is still a fairly significant difference between the two. Oh yeah, very cool. A little bit higher compression. Actually, you know, that 6.4 swap with a small cam thing for the pickup trucks is a lot of smart idea to me. Oh, sorry, we're saying about the cats. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it again, probably just running rich. Skid sister just traded the car away. Yeah, no, I get that for sure. Oh, y'all haven't ever seen a motorcycle air filter before. This is the one off the Kawasaki. There's your screen on the top. This is what on the feed side. Good old paper filter. Actually, it's kind of got a funny gas smell to it. Anyway, that's the air filter. It's getting a K&N, so it'll get a K&N air filter. What all are we doing to this thing? So K&N air filter. Just because, you know, but really the big part of it is going to be the exhaust. The limiting factor on the Z900 is, or a Z900Rs anyway, is the header diameter. It looks pretty impressive, but it's actually double walled. So it's got a small primary, so it's going to get a larger primary. The bread box, which is the actual muffler itself, which is that thing, is going the F away. You know, just from an aesthetic, it doesn't go well for me. So I am looking forward to getting the exhaust put on it, getting it all put back together, and really having some ripping good times with this Cowie. The Kawasaki is actually the one that I am the most impressed with right now. Yeah. So I thought that looked like a K&N. It kind of does. If I port the stock intake, will that help? No. It won't help you out, brother. I have ported a lot of intake manifolds, and I got to tell you, some are really good from the factory, and those are the ones you don't pick up a lot of power with, maybe 5 or 6 here and there. But you'll pick up all over the place. It doesn't just pick up on the big end. Typically, if they're in really bad shape, you can pick up pretty decent power. The most I've ever picked up is 13 horsepower, but that was in a one-off scenario, and that intake was foobar. I mean, it was a really bad one. but it was really bad in a really good way, and I should have kept that intake manifold. It was core shifted, but to the back, and so the runners were actually larger. I say would be a streetcar occasionally on the strip. Be honest with yourself when you say occasionally on the strip. Are we talking about it's going to go to the drag strip one time in its entire life, or are you going to take it to the drag strip once every month or once every other month? If you're not really going for a number, have the cam, just let them know, whoever's putting your cam together, let them know what you're going to be doing with that thing. Someone's saying, hit the lights. Yes. Oh, Skid Street Bob comes with the HF intake, just going to do top end and some slip-ons. Very cool. Yeah, Street Bobs are nice. You know, the bike that's really got me, the FT, what is it? The Indian FT, whatever it is, 1200. I'm having a hard time not buying that bike right now. So for you guys who don't know, Indian does have a hot rod motorcycle, and it is legit hot rod. About 120 horsepower, about 85 pound-feet of torque. It's everything the Thruxton kind of wishes it could be with a V-twin. Anyway, that bike with the right, like kill the undertail and a couple of different things is a killer looking motorcycle. So of all the other bikes that are out right now, if I were to get something else, I don't know if it would be a Triumph. I think it would be an Indian. I think it would have to be that Indian. And I wouldn't get another cruiser. I will say this, the T-Bird, well, here's the T-Bird right here. There she is. So I've been spending a whole lot of time with this big girl right here too. And you might wonder why. Like, why are you spending so much time with the T-Bird? I tell you what, the reason why I'm spending so much time with the Bird is, and I'm going to put a video together. I've got to do something that really showcases that bike a little bit more. But it's like a language that I kind of understand. It's like a dialect, right? It's like you're trying to understand someone who speaks like Irish. Like, you know that there's some English in there, but you don't have enough of it. That's kind of what this bike is to me. There's a lot about that bike that I really, really like. And I'm really just kind of coming around to it, so to speak. So it will be getting a tune, by the way. In about 3 weeks, it's going to get a tune that's going to help it deal with that catless, the catless mid that's on there. But I got to tell you guys, that bike is surprising me in a weird way, mainly because it's just a bit of a hot rod. And I love that it makes a ton of torque. It's 107, is it 107? Right, just shy of 110 pound-feet of torque and about just shy of 90 horsepower. So for its era, it would have been right in line with all of the hot rod Harleys that were out at that time, all of them making around 80 and 100-ish horsepower and torque respectively. But it's just so much fun ripping that bike to 80, 85 miles an hour. It's just, it really kind of hauls ass in that respect. And so, but it does it in such a weird and different way. It's like, okay, you know, so Reich was asking about that 454. If you were to put the stock intake manifold and, you know, a small cam in that 454, it's going to make a god-awful amount of torque all over the place. And it would sign off around 5,800 RPM, 5,500 RPM, but it would be a thumping trip to get you there. So anyway, that's a lot like this T-Bird, 1,600 cc's, and it's just a lot of fun. And I'm having, I'm just having a fun time connecting with that bike. I didn't think I would be intrigued by it. I didn't think I would like it as much. Really, it was just going to be an appliance to motor me and my wife around, you know, run down to the coast and you know, eat some oysters and some chicken strips. I mean, that's really what this bike is all about for me, but I'm finding myself more and more pulled by it, which is kind of funny. Marco's asking me if I want to make a little more power, what do I do? Port the heads? Man, you're not going to get a lot out of porting the heads, brother. Those heads already are massive when it comes to airflow. So you're not going to get a whole lot out of that, unfortunately. Oh, you're getting with the SD Customs. I tell you what, those are nice. Man, if the T-Bird didn't already have a really good seat by Triumph on it, it's an aftermarket by Triumph, I would probably be looking for that. Marco, E85, not really. When I was doing all the power sweeps on Quick Brick's car, you can get more torque down low, but you're not going to really be able to do much with that up top. You're not going to get a lot of power out of it. You're hosing the thing down so much with E85 that you're starting to displace air once you really start throwing fuel at it. Skids, FTR 1200. Yep, you know, just get it. I know. Skid saying you need to borrow the bird. Man, I'm telling you, dude, this thing's addictive. I hand you the keys, I might never see this bike again, brother. It's weird, though. It's not... Okay, I'll put it to you like this. I had it out on, when was it? It was actually, I had it out on Sunday. And the whole thing with me and bikes is the fit of it. And if you guys don't remember, the guy that I bought the bird from, really big dude. And so it was said the bars were way up and all this other stuff. So I've got the bars about as far down as I can get them now. Because motorcycles are weird. Just because you sit on a bike, and this is for you guys that may not really have a lot of motorcycling experience. A motorcycle, it does not feel the same when you're sitting on it static as it does when you're moving. I can sit on the cowie behind me, and it feels like you're really laid over. But once you get going, it actually initially it felt very upright. The Bonneville basically to me almost feels like a dirt bike once I get riding on it. It's just a very upright position for me. So just because it feels one way when you're sitting on it, it's why it's so important to get the bike out and ride it and get a feel for what you're going to have to change to get it to fit whatever your brain and the way you're wired finds it to be comfortable, which is another thing. I mean, what I find comfortable, you might hate, or what I find comfortable, you might love. There's so many different just ways, just the way that you're wired. Whatever's comfortable it is what it is. There is no right answer to this. So anyway, I've been trying to get the T-Bird sorted out as far as getting the bars right where I want them. Come to find out, I actually like on this bike the bars lower because you sit more in the bike, and it helps you to get a little bit further back on the bike as opposed to being more up here with the bars. It's kind of a goofy feeling with that thing. Anyway, so I get the thing out on the road, and it's like, okay, well, first, second, third gear. And it's like, man, this thing is really kind of punchy. And by the way, yeah, I am going to be putting a quick throttle on that thing too. But I'm just kind of going through the gears like, man, this thing is really punchy. And I get it up on the highway, and I'm kind of cruising along, and it's real happy cruising at like 75 or 85 miles an hour. Somewhere between those two speeds, that's where cruisers will typically like to chill. That's their happy zone. And then you've got a lot of just initial snap. If you need to get around somebody, you've got a lot of overhead. You've got a lot of, you've got a lot of power there just to get around somebody without downshifting or anything like that. So I'm buzzing along, and let's go ahead and crack her, get her some air flowing through this thing. And I crack the throttle and, get into the throttle a bit more. I thought, well, shit, let's see if this thing will do 100 miles an hour. 85, 95, yeah, 100, yeah, well, okay, let's stay in it, 100, 105. I'm like, all right, she's still pulling pretty good. So I kind of start tucking a little bit, like, all right, what's it going to do? Ended up rolling out of the throttle. Sounded good. By the way, here in Velocito, we're going to be getting rain this weekend, but right now the weather's pretty good. So if you hear that, there's some folks heading out to test their skill set, shall we say. Anyway, the bike's a lot of fun to ride, but it will absolutely cover numbers that, something like that, I mean, you wouldn't expect it anyway out of a tank like this. And so, bikes are really great at acceleration, but they're not really good at top speed, again, because aerodynamics, and nothing is less aerodynamic than a cruiser. So anyway, getting back to it with you guys. Oh, it definitely would have been T-Bird. Wish Harley Davidson would bring back the V-Rod. It was another high horsepower hot rod that Harley Davidson, that the old fellas threw shade at. That's another weird one for me, y'all. Why in the hell did Harley guys throw hella shade at the V-Rod? I never could understand that. That was such a weird thing for me, because to me, I thought, neat, man, we got a cool power cruiser, and it's something different, something racy, kind of neat. I went and looked at one. It didn't fit. It really, for me, needed a little bit more. The one that I was sitting on had the mid controls on, and I didn't like that. For a bike that's stretched out like that, I'd rather have a little bit more forward on the controls, kind of like the T-Bird has, a little bit more of a forward control bike. And anyway, it was just kind of funny. The Harley guys they would throw 9 kinds of shade at that bike. Never could understand it. Raish asking, how long do you think the stock intake would last? It would last for as long as it's on the car. But I'll tell you that, again, it just depends on what you're doing with the car, man. If you like, real snappy, hardcore throttle response, that stock intake is going to be where it's at for you. If not, you want to have something that'll stretch out a little bit longer and give you peak horsepower potential. That's going to be a horse of a different color. I'll give you a perfect example of, a car that could really use an intake manifold is that one right there. GT40 intake manifold, fantastic, no matter what the displacement is, up to about 4,500, maybe on a 302, maybe 4,700 RPM. Well, the problem with that is it's fantastic for being extremely snappy underfoot, but you're just not going to make big peak horsepower numbers. So, just if you know the limitations of the intake and you can work around that, set your shift points up probably around 6,000 RPM with that much displacement, and it will fry tires until you get bored with what you're doing. Sovereign, I tell you what, man, as long as the track prep is good, he's got a shot. But the Plaid is like every conceivable cheat code you can think of. So it's going to be tough, but he's got a shot. Skids is checking out. And I think I am too, fellas. I got to wrap it up because I got to wake up crazy early in the morning. So with that, fellas, appreciate y'all hanging out with me again, working on this Kawasaki Z900Rs. If you've ever wondered what's underneath the lid, this is what's underneath the lid again. And the next time you see this bike, it will be after the new ECU is installed and probably after the exhaust is installed. So she's going to be in about a zillion pieces until then, though. Anyway, guys, thank you all very much. Really do appreciate it. Oh, Noab asking, do you have the GT40 heads or GT40P heads also on the Stang? Those are AFR 185 heads. They're big chamber, though, because that car was slated to have a supercharger. And then it ran so good without it, decided against it. But it used to have GT40, no, I'm sorry, that was my coupe. Anyway, experience has been with the Y heads on this car, GT40Ys, that had a little bit of mold blending. And that was a fun combination. It's a 351 that's in that car too. It's not a 5-liter. Lime saying, just got here now, just now leaving. Yeah, we got to check out early tonight, fellas. But with that, listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, guys, thank y'all so much again. Raj, appreciate the contribution to the cause, my buddy. Hopefully it works out for you with that big inch Gen 3. And with that, we will catch y'all this weekend. That's a wrap, fellas. Adios.